Hey, good morning, FCF. We've been working hard for 6 days on the subject of work, and now we are in day 7. And we come to the New Testament, we come to a portion of Scripture, it's actually one of my favorite Scriptures, and it's in the context of employee-employer relationships. And we know the book of 1 Peter chapter 2 touches on the same subject, and Peter just outright says, many times we're working for people that are not very nice to work for. They're not fair, they're not appreciative, they're not even polite, all these things. But he says, still as Christ followers, we have to conduct ourselves in a cautious manner before them in a way that honors God and gives every opportunity to soften the hearts of those we work for. Well, let me read you Colossians, and I'm going to start in chapter 3, verse 22. Now, please, let's contemporize this language a little bit, but I'm going to read it to you the way it reads, and then I'm going to kind of put it in context. It starts off, slaves, obey your earthly masters and everything. By the way, historical context. When this was written, the Roman Empire dominated the world, and it's estimated that there were about as many as 60 million slaves. You have to understand, when the Romans conquered a country, you might have been a doctor, you might have been a butcher, baker, candlestick maker. Didn't matter. You are now a slave. Now you might continue on as a doctor or a butcher, baker, candlestick maker, but you're essentially owned by a Roman family. Now, history tells us that Roman involvement of this kind, although it was called slavery, and technically it was not of the brutal sort that was practiced in other parts of the world and other parts of history, in particular here in America. So please, when you read this, we're not advocating slavery. Scripture doesn't advocate slavery, but it does advocate honoring God in whatever circumstance we find ourselves in, and we can't always control those. So let me go back. It says slaves, we're going to put in our minds employees. Slaves, employees, obey your earthly masters, your boss, in everything. Notice it says obey them in everything. Do it not only when their eye is on you to win their favor, but with sincerity of heart, with reverence for the Lord. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord. That is a very powerful concept. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for men. So if you have an unjust boss, an unfair boss, an odious boss, remember, you're not working for the boss, you're working for the Lord. If you keep that in your mind, it will transform your work experience. I promise you, because I did this myself in my years in construction work. It goes on to say this in verse 24. It says, you do this, you work with all your heart as for the Lord, not for men, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ you are serving. Get that down. I don't care who you're working for. I don't care what their personality is like. I don't care how much of a nice person or scoundrel they are. Technically, you are working for Christ. That enables you and I to go into work, whatever circumstance, every day and give our best for Christ and know that we're appreciated. The boss may not appreciate you. The fellow workers may not appreciate you. Your family may not appreciate you. But Christ is keeping track, and He appreciates your hard work, your loyalty, when it's done for Him. Then He gives a bit of a warning to the employer. After it assures us that God's going to reward us for our faithfulness in our work. Verse 25 says, anyone who does wrong will be repaid for the wrong he does, and there's no favoritism with him. So it says in chapter 4, masters or bosses provide your slaves or employees with what is right and fair, because you know that you also have a master in heaven. So here we have the balance. God's going to judge people. So if you have a bad boss, you have an unfair boss, you have an inappreciative or cruel boss, unjust boss, let it alone, let it go. You're in there serving Christ. If you repeat this to yourself, if you remind yourself every day, I'm telling you, I don't care how miserable your work experience is, it can be transformed to literally be fun. I know, because I've done it. When you just fixate on that, I'm not in here working for my paycheck, I'm not in here working for you, I'm not in here working for the company, I'm here working for the Lord. Now, this is not to say that we shouldn't be as polite and devoted to our bosses and the company, and respectful and honorable. You know, don't go in there with a little chip on your shoulder. I'm not working for you, I'm working for God, because you will get fired more than likely if you have that chip. But if it's necessary to keep that frame of mind that okay, I'm not liking this circumstance that I'm in here, but I am here working for Christ, and Christ sees what I'm doing, and He will reward me. No matter what anybody else sees or rewards, He will reward me. So I'm going to stay devoted to Him, and I'm going to do what I do with all of my heart. Remember that half-heartedness in work is its own punishment. There's nothing worse than doing a job half-hearted. You will suffer in the long run because you can't feel excited, you can't feel motivated, you can't feel good about what you're doing. Go at it with all your heart, and remember, it's the Lord you're working for. It's not your human employer. I hope this helps, because it helped me a whole bunch back in my years in construction. Thank you.